Okay, in this video we're going to start with an introduction to Python programming. Now, as you can see here, the window I have up and running is the Python idle interpreter. So IDLE stands for Integrated Development and Learning Environment, IDLE. The idea is I can type commands here at this interactive prompt and have them immediately interpreted by the Python language. You can see where I'm currently running Python 3.7, and the three greater than signs here show me the prompt at which I am using. So anything I type here at this prompt will be interpreted by Python and executed. So one of the first things that we're going to learn with Python is how to display output to the screen. By default, the screen is our output mechanism. Now, obviously, that can be changed. You can always, send it to a printer, send it to a file, and various things like that. And we'll look at those in later videos. But for now, we just want to display output to the screen. To do that, we're going to use the Python print function. Okay. So as you can see here, you notice print turns purple or magenta or whatever color you want to call that. That's because print is a function. The idea is with this function, we have to supply it some kind of information, some argument. Now, if we just leave this blank, it's just going to print a blank line. Okay? We can print pretty much whatever we want. Okay? We can print a string. Okay? So if I want to print hello world, you can see here I use single quotes. And then hello world turns green. Python understands that this is a string, hence it's turned green. And if I hit enter, it displays hello world just as I had typed it. Okay, so it really makes it nice to be able to display different types of output. Now, there's all kinds of things we can do with this. Now, in this case, you see I did use single quotes. Okay, those quotes signify this being a string. That is in contrast to putting something like the number 5. Okay, so if I just put 5 in there, that still will print, but I'm printing the actual number 5, or the integer 5 in this case, to allow me to display that. Okay, that's different than if I did something like this. I can print 5 as a string. Now, we'll get in later to talk about the different data types we have, but in this case, we just need to understand that we can display output. Now, we can also display multiple arguments with this. For example, maybe I want to print hello world, oops, and then the number 5. Okay? In this case, I'm supplying two arguments or two items that I want to print. I want to print hello world and the number 5. And when I hit enter, you can see it prints hello world and then 5. So I can print as much as I want when I go through here. Now, the complication with print comes in when you want to print text like I'm going to the store. Okay? The problem you have here is you notice it's kind of acting a little weird. You can see that I is in green with the quotes around it, and then M going to the store is in white, and then there's an apostrophe here, a quote here, and then a parenthesis that's green. The problem we have here is the fact that this single quote is interpreted as the enclosure for a string. So what we can do to make sure that doesn't happen is we can use double quotes at the beginning and then double quotes at the end. Now what this is going to do is it's going to print I'm going to the store just as we wanted it to happen, right? I am is a contraction. We want the apostrophe to be there. So I had to put that in there, and I go by the double quotes on the outside. One of the things that I recommend as you go through and doing this is when you do print strings, just put them in double quotes, okay? Now, you could do something like this. You could print I slash going to the store, okay? You could do something like this, and it will print I'm going to the store. What this backslash is it tells Python that the quote is an escape character, or that quote should be interpreted just as it is. Okay, so that slash says, okay, yes, you're going to encounter a single quote here. Treat it as a quote and not as a mechanism for surrounding my string. Okay, and that's why you see the quote here. This can be confusing. So again, I recommend that you use the double quotes and just get in the habit of using them all the time. That way, if you do have to print quoted text, you don't have to worry about, okay, do I have to have a single quote or a double quote or what have you. It makes things a little bit simpler when you do this, okay? So again, I go back to just trying to make it as easy on yourself as possible, all right? Now, not only can we print on single lines, we can also use escape characters to allow us to do different things. Okay. For example, if I want to print some text on two separate lines, okay, I could do something like this: hello /n world. Okay. Again, this slash is an escape character. And when it's followed by an N, it says, okay, this is a new line character. So what it's going to do is it's going to print hello, then print a new line, and then print world. So we should have hello world stacked on top of each other. And we do, okay, as you can see here. Now, yes, that space is there because there's a space here. But this is how you can print them on separate lines. So I have one string of text that I want to type, but I don't want on two separate lines. So I can use that escape character, the /n. I mean, I could have done this, print hello, and then print world, okay? And that would have effectively done the same thing I did here. But using that escape character does get handy when you want to print on new lines. Now, the /n is not the only thing you have, okay? There's a /t that does a tab, and we'll talk more about those as we move through. Now, like we said earlier, we can print multiple arguments, okay? So in this case here, we have provided two arguments, argument 1 and argument 2, to the print function, and it will take as many as you want. The key is to make sure you separate them all by a comma. So up here I had print hello world, and then I had the 5 after that, so that I had two separate arguments that I wanted to print. Okay. Now, what's also kind of nice is we can use a couple different special functions, or special arguments, I should say, inside of print that allows me to do some different things. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a small program just to kind of show you how this might work. Okay, so in idle, up at the very top, there's a menu. I'm going to click on File, and I'm going to do a new file. And what new file does is it brings up a blank working environment for me to type in my program. Now you notice the greater than signs aren't there because obviously I'm not at the interpreter prompt anymore, but at least I'm able to have an editor that will still give me the color coding so I can do some things. All right. So we're going to take some of the some of the stuff that we've done already and kind of put it into here. So we're going to do a print hello world, right? And what this is going to do is it's going to print hello world on one line. We're then going to print hello /n world, and that's going to print hello world on two separate lines. It'll print hello, and then it'll print world. We can also print multiple arguments, right? So print hello world, and then we'll print the number 5. Okay, so this is just going to print multiple fields or multiple arguments to the screen. Now we can also get fancy. A lot of times when we do printing, there is a parameter or a keyword called end that we can add to a print statement. Okay, so if I do something like this, hello world, we're going to put, or better yet, let's do this. My name is, and we're going to put a quote here, my name is Paul. And what will happen is, by default, it will put all of this on one line. So we could do that. Now, there is a keyword called end, okay? And by default, when we use end, it uses a new line character by default. That's why when I print hello world or I print hello world 5, it all prints on the same line, but then the cursor goes down to the next line, because by default, end has a new line character. Well, what if I want to adjust that? What if I don't want that to necessarily be the outcome? Maybe I want to change some things a little bit. Well, what I can do is I can change what that end parameter is, and then I can print something like this underneath it. So we'll do, my name is Paul, loving Python. Okay, let's do something like that. Now, what's going to happen with this, and you'll see when we run the code, is that it's going to print my name is Paul and loving Python all on the same line. Okay, let me put both these out here so you can see how this would work. So I'm just going to do this. My name is Paul, and I'm not going to put end in there, and I'm going to print loving Python. Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to do this twice just so you can see the difference between the two. All right, notice the second one, as I said, has end in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to run, and I'm going to run the module. Now it's going to ask me to save the code, so I need to make sure I save the code. And I'm going to save it. I'm going to create a new folder. Let's see. Well, let's put this in my Python folder here. So I'm just going to call this one video 1, I guess, and .py. Okay, so video1.py, and I'm going to save it, and it's going to run it, and you can see here how it runs. Okay, so the first one was print hello, all one statement, and then I did print hello with a new line character in it. So you see I got hello world. Here I printed 2 fields. Here I printed my name as Paul, and then loving Python, right? 2 individual print statements, and then this is the one with end in it. And you can see that before, when I had the 2 print statements, as I said, end by default has a new line character. Since I overrode that and changed it to just a space, that's why this loving Python is on the same line as the other one. Okay, so this end becomes very beneficial when you want to do some things. Okay, if you want to have some values all on the same line but want to have multiple print statements. Now, some would ask, well, why don't you just put that all on the same line, just do one print statement? Well, sometimes you're going to get a longer list of arguments. It just gets to be a little weird, and maybe we don't want it to do that. Okay, like I said, the default behavior, it's a new line, but we might want to change it. Now, not only can we do that, but we can also use something called sep. Sep and end are only used in Python 3x and newer. Python 2 did not have end and sep. So let's add sep to one of these. So I'm going to print my name is, and we're going to put Paul. We're going to do end the same way we did before, but now I'm going to add in sep, and sep is short for separator. And what a separator will do, I'm just going to put in some asterisks here. Sep will put in separators between my different fields. So in this case, up here in this first line, I have field 1, or argument 1, if you want to say, is my name is. And the second one is Paul. So what should happen is when I run this, it should say my name is, and then have the asterisks, and then have Loving Python right after that. Okay, so if I run this code, run module, again it's going to ask me to save it. I'm just going to say OK. And here is the output. Okay, so you can see here with the addition of sep, it put field 1 or argument 1, my name is, the separator, which was the asterisks, and then Paul, which was the second argument in the first print statement. And then because we put end in there and we put it as a space instead of using the new line, it put Loving Python right at the end. Okay, so using print can be very powerful and displays a lot of really, basically it's your avenue to display any kinds of text that you might have. Now, the cool thing about print is not only can you print strings and integers and things, but you can also print the values of variables. So if you have a variable called a, so we'll say a equals 100, I can print a. Okay? And the nice thing about it is when I run this code, so I'll run the module, you can see it prints 100. Okay, so you can print pretty much anything you want to print when you go through. It's just a matter of making sure you set it up to do so. Biggest things to remember is that your strings should go in double quotes. You can use singles, but again, I would avoid that. The /n for new line. Okay, you can print multiple arguments, and they don't have to be of the same type. Here I've got a string followed by an integer. Here I'm printing on 2 separate lines. Here I'm using the end keyword to change how the end of the line appears. Instead of it being a new line, it's going to be just a space. And then here I'm using sep for separator. And what that does is it separates the 2 fields. In this case, it separates them with an asterisk in this case. I also have end in there, which changes the default behavior of print. Instead of printing and then doing a new line at the end, it just puts a space and then it continues after. Here, I'm just setting a variable, the letter A equal to 100, and we just print that letter A so you can see that the value is printed. Okay? So that is kind of a real simple introduction to print and how we would display output to the screen. Okay? If you have questions, feel free to contact me. If not, I bid you good morning, good afternoon, or good evening.